Hi, everyone. Welcome to HR Bytes, a podcast and video series to bring you stories of HR professionals who bring a think globally and act locally digital HR agenda to their work. Everyday people who are driving digital transformations in their organizations, data-driven and future-fit digital HR leaders. This is your host, Jay Polaki, and my guest today is joining us all the way from Seattle, Ritesh Daryani. He's the Global Head of People and Culture, Global Vice President of People and Culture at Edifex. And I'm so happy to have you on the show today, Ritesh. How are you doing?
I'm doing really good. I'm so happy to be here too. Thank you. Thanks for inviting, actually.
Absolutely. Thank you. So, Ritesh, you and I have been talking for quite some time before I invited you as a guest. You've been at the forefront of this digital transformation for a very long time. You've been doing this, I guess, most of your career. Tell us a little bit about your experience in the human resources industry, so to speak.
My personal self. So I have, there is a fact which I wanted to share is that I actually share the same profession as my wife. Actually, my wife is also an HR professional. We met actually in the college, and then I later got married. I have actually two kids, 13 and 17 and 11. So and I have two dogs, which we really enjoy playing with. But professionally, if you look at it, I actually thought about my career when I was pretty young, and how should I design and think about building my career. And what I did was for first 8 to 9 years, deliberately I worked in COE functions. So I actually did recruiting, I did learning. I also did a business manager role supporting a head of HR. I also ventured into technology. I was an SAP consultant actually at one point in time, and I was working in Memphis, Tennessee in 2002, and we were doing SAP implementation, moving from mainframe. So I did those specialist roles early in my career, and the whole goal for that was that once you know these specialist function, it will be easier, and as a leader, I'll be more effective. And in future, I take either HR business partner roles, or I do leadership role, which the kind of role which I am doing today. So that really helped me. Apart from that, if you look at the kind of companies I worked, it was not by design the way I deliberated on my, how I should build my career in the HR space. But first 13 years of my career, I focused working with IT consulting and services companies. So I worked with companies like IBM, CSC, Infosys, and those companies is all about scale and how do you bring, do a lot of HR things, but always think about how you're going to scale it to the larger, because it's all about people in the services and the consulting company. So that was a great experience, 13 years, and I learned a lot. But I moved to Expedia after those 13 years and worked in e-commerce. This was my first consumer company. Majority of my life has been, before Expedia and after Expedia has been an enterprise company. So I worked with Expedia. I really enjoyed it. I was in their headquarters in Bellevue. I actually did two stints of HR business partner. The first one was in the CTO organization, and second, an organization called e-commerce platform. So that's amazing. But about 5.5 years back, Edifex happened, and I joined Edifex, and I continue to really enjoy. I have a very good team here, and so I do this job. It makes easy for me because the kind of people I have in my team. So that has been my last little more than 20 years. I have also worked in I have not lived in many countries, but I've worked in many countries. So during my, for example, my Expedia days, my role was truly global. The leaders I was supporting, we had employees in 30 different locations, 30 different countries actually. And I really enjoyed this global, though sometimes it could be a little bit taxing that you have meetings morning and evening, but I have really enjoyed my global experience. And Lastly, I have also worked in two countries. I started my career in India and worked there for about 8 years or so, my early career, and then I moved to US where I've spent about 14 years. It has given me a lot of good insights working in two different cultures. And if you know India, India actually has multiple cultures, not just one. So, so it's this diversity of experience as well as diversity has given me a lot of diversity of thoughts to be a successful leader. So
how has this pandemic kind of helped you foster the human connection at work, and also kind of been a challenge for you to foster that?
yeah, if you I think look back in my career, I've gone through a little bit of financial ups and downs, which happened in environment in the past. I was part of when .com happened, and I've seen 9/11, and including financial crisis too. But COVID has been very unusual. This is one thing which has happened to the world, which is so global. Like in a financial crisis, also I think a lot of things happened which impacted a lot of organization, but the scale was so different as compared to what happened in this. And there are more than 200 countries in the world. If ask and try to research, this pandemic has impacted quite a bit of people. If I come back and see how we as a company at EdFX handled the situation, we are actually a very remote company. I think especially in US, we are in three regions. We are in Eastern Europe, we are in India, as well as in US. Our US workforce is quite actually, they have experience in working in remote environment. So our transition was quite quick. We did not see much impact on our business. We did not see much impact on our deliverables. But in other regions where, like India or Eastern Europe, majority of our workforce we used to work from office, and they had to transition, and the infrastructure is quite different in those countries at home. So I think we have to a little bit adjust to, and employees have to a little bit adjust to that environment. But overall, I think we handled the transition because our leadership is actually very, very strong. And they were able to bring everything together, and everybody we work very closely as a leadership team, so we were able to come together and able to deliver what is required for our customers and employees and everybody else. Specifically from HR perspective, we made some changes, and definitely when you're moving, doing an in-person, you have an HR function, and suddenly it moves to a remote environment, we had to adjust almost all of our programs. So starting from recruiting, we started taking decisions and doing interview using Zoom. We also started, if you look at it, in the past, you have an on-site interview, and the candidate will come to your office. They will give them a walkthrough and give a kind of an experience they're looking for. But as soon as you get into a remote environment, you have to give a similar kind of an experience, but everything is on video. So it just becomes very important that all our touch points, which we do it with the candidate, are pretty much aligned to the kind of experience we want to give. And similarly, we change other functions. We have a well-being offerings which we did, like we offer actually free massages, cook together classes, meditation, yoga to our employees, which we had to completely actually change the direction and move into a remote environment. So I was actually looking for this discussion that, hey, what we are doing in that area. So actually I pulled and went to the website and started looking at, hey, what we are offering tomorrow. So some of the things I can actually list to you. Tomorrow we have sessions like restorative fitness for beginners. We have how to sleep better and faster, breath work, and toe tapping, Pilates remotely, and then yoga nidra, and then yoga for intermediate to advanced. So all these things which we were doing in person before, we just moved it into the remote world. So I think we did a lot of things, including the same thing in onboarding and how to look at the data. And all these aspects, we actually in the HR function, we made a lot of small changes to move to the remote world.
Well, I'm interested in the yoga session that you're going to have tomorrow. It sounds like something that I would like to really attend. So, it looks like since you are kind of a digital first company and your strategy has mostly been digital first and people first, it was very easy for you to pivot and adapt during this time. And technology wise, you already had technology in place to help you with this, or did you have to actually purchase new technology during this pandemic to foster that human connection at work?
I think technology was already existing, but we did few projects and we had to, we moved the projects faster in a much faster pace. For example, we were moving from Skype for Business to Teams. Anyway, but as soon as this pandemic hit us, we immediately actually moved our, dates and everything. We fast forwarded and we did the implementation much faster. So most of our collaboration internally and our medium for chatting as well as video calls is Teams within the organization. But we do use Zoom for our interviews and some specialist area. Like for example, when we do our all hands meeting, we started actually doing globally. Initially, what we were doing, it was in the all hands spaces. um, any leaders used to travel to India or Eastern Europe, they will do their whole all hands meeting when they reach there. But the change we made is we started doing quarterly global all hands. So, and we started using chat box and Q&A, coach and webinar functionalities of Zoom, and started doing all these all hand meetings virtually. And to be very frank, I think it was very powerful because we have a whole leadership on the video and people can ask questions real time. They can send the questions much in advance. So our engagement and transparency, what we bring, it's just on your fingertips. You're sitting on your laptop and you can see everybody in front of your computer. Whereas in the past life, before COVID or pre-COVID, somebody has to actually travel to those locations and do the all hand meetings whenever they're there. So I think, to be very frank, I think the technology has given us an edge over being more effective, and we can be more we can engage employees in much effective way, in these kind of programs, actually, at least.
Wonderful. That's really good to know. Those are great insights. I've been talking to a lot of HR leaders who've been leveraging technology. So it's really good to know that this is something that has fostered better connection during this time, and that leveraging technology has really been a great thing for your organization. So, in the midst of all of this, what role do you think that the actual human connections work, in fostering and scaling innovation in the HR space, especially in a HR department where traditionally we are used to being very transactional and very process first and process focused. How do you think our social networks and social capital within the organization help us guide and scale innovation in our department?
Yeah, we are a bottoms up organization. We like that we get ideas from every part of the organization. So whenever we do any kind of events, so for example, when you're doing all hand meeting, or when we were doing employee surveys, or we are running actually like a well-being survey, we do ask employees what you're looking for. And this was no different than other times. We ask our employees, hey, what we're looking for. And so we constantly get the feedback from the employees, and we have the forums for that. Also, other ways that our leadership team started meeting more frequently than what we were doing before. So the combined, the brain power of all the leadership team, we were thinking how we can engage our employees, what we can do differently, how we can make sure they're productive, how we can make sure our customers are not impacted, what tools and resources we can provide, to our employees. And for example, like any other company, we did the home reimbursement program where we, reimburse a certain stipend to employees to purchase and make their offices more productive. People can buy yoga mats if it helps them to be more productive, or people can buy a coffee a maker, and people can buy a mouse or whatever they think is good, and ergonomic chairs and tables and furnitures. So it really helped, and that came from the feedback which we have received. We definitely looked at a benchmark ourselves with other companies and what other companies were doing it, but this idea also came from within. So that's another. We also do quite a bit of. I do a lot of self-learning. A lot of our leaders, and so we are reading and attending a lot of sessions where we are realizing what other companies are doing. So that also gives us some of the best practices available in the market. So I think it took a little bit more efforts in the remote environment, how to get the feedback and everything else. But these days, you can always run any surveys and everything, so you get the feedback. But I think those kind of opportunities, and then when you interact either externally with some of your friends in your network or your colleagues in the office and ask your employees what they're looking for, you can always create more ideas, and that idea can help you to be more effective in the remote environment. So in this social, I personally feel that this social the whole social network is really, really helpful in this remote world which we are living in right now.
That's really good to know because I've heard a lot of folks saying that technology might kind of hinder that social connection and that human connection. But looks like you guys are doing great, and you're using the data to make the decisions. So you're using the data and the feedback from your employees to make the decisions. So that's really awesome and very insightful. So, if you are an HR professional and you are trying to implement a new technology, what do you think you should be doing? What's one piece of advice that you think we should
So let me
follow?
talk a little bit on that topic. I'll see if there's one or more than one. But the thing is, I think don't follow what everybody is doing. So I'll give you a little bit like what I'm trying to say here is that, like example, when we did move from a rating scale system to feedback based system, everybody in the world just moved to exactly the same direction. There might be a possibility that there is a better solution in the performance management area, which could be better than even the feedback based system where majority of the organization moved. So one is, I think, adopt things which work for you and your organization rather than just doing things and adopting a technology for the heck of just adopting the technology. So it should make sense for your company, or also make sense what you're trying to automate or what technology and you're trying to do. That's one part of it. Second thing is you should test and learn. So sometimes what happens is a lot of times we don't know what we need, and there are so much happening in the HR tech world. I think it's good to sometimes you just test the model either to a small group of people, or if you like, for example, if you want to implement OKRs in a company and you want to use a platform to digitalize that OKR implementation, it's great that you take a small section of the organization and see how that works. So test and learn is a great idea. You can and then learn from whether it's going to make sense culturally, because most of the technology implementations are not, it's nothing to do with technology. Implementing technology is so easy. It's all about people. How do you change the mindset of people, and how do you make sure they are ready to adopt the changes which you're trying to bring into the organization? In the whole process of the implementation of whenever you're doing anything on the HR tech or technology space or any other, it's not necessarily HR or maybe finance space or anything else. The most important thing is it works for your organization, and secondly, just don't do it because everybody's doing it, and then third is just test and learn and see how it everything comes together and learn from your own mistakes. But
Absolutely.
keep looking outside. I think it's a good idea because you're one person sitting in one corner, and you're part of only one organization, but there are millions of organizations globally. So and there are a lot of organizations who are focusing on HR tech and their platforms and products. So it's a good idea that keep abreast yourself is what's happening in the market, and change your vision and strategy or whatever you're thinking about your function, the HR function, and then think what works for you, and then you can adopt whenever you think is the right time for your organization.
Wonderful. Great insights. And I do like the three-pronged approach to adopting technology. That's really great. Thank you. So, we've also been at not only kind of trying to adopt new technology, but we've also been trying to uplift our employees and empower our organizations to lead and remain competitive in the global space, right? What do you think we as a function, as a human resources function, can do to prepare our function for this increase in this hybrid work where, some of us are working from home, some of us are in the office, and some of us are doing both. We are going into the office on a few days and coming and working from home on a few days. What can HR do to help our employees kind of adopt to this new workplace and maintain that engagement and maintain that connection, the human connection amongst our employee populations?
Yeah, one thing I think when you started, that's in hybrid world. I think a few organizations have started, and globally where you are depends on the word. Um, Offices have started opening. We as an organization wants to be quite conservative, so we want to learn from others' mistakes. So we will take some time to open the offices. Currently, we're thinking of opening in July, and probably if it pushes to August, September, I'll not be surprised. But we want to do the right thing for our employees' safety. But this COVID, whatever change has happened, this is one change which is going to be quite ingrained. And you will see organization, and we are already seeing that the employees will work in the hybrid model, or a lot of employees, the roles which can be done from home, those kind of roles, people will move into remote locations. And that change is bound to happen. But when you do this change, I think a couple of things are extremely important. One is how you make sure that you maintain engagement level at the same, like when you're in the office, it's so different. If you need anything, you can just walk into a person and ask questions. Whereas when you're in the remote world, you have to set up a meeting or ping or use chat or use Slack, and it depends what kind of a tool you're using. In those, and you are not in the thick and thin of the organization. You're not around 200, 300, 400, depending upon how big is your organization. You're not among those people. You're sitting home alone and working. So it is, sometimes it can happen that people just start taking this as a job rather than it's a passion for them, because it's just, day in, day out, you're in the front of the screen. So I think engaging that, HR can play a tremendous role in making sure they keep engaging this employee population and making sure people who are remote are being looked at. And there could be, different things you can do. And similarly, I think the other thing which is very important when you do is just, and you keep hiring new people also, and that will be possibility that these people are coming in your different remote locations, and how you can make sure that your culture is intact. You keep the same, your value system and the culture and everything. So it's very important. So this can happen through role modeling by senior leaders and making sure HR creates some fundamentals on how we can bring everybody together whenever it's possible. How you can make sure that reiterate the messages of what your value system is, whether at the time of recruiting, starting from recruiting, when you're onboarding, and later you're assimilating, and finally when employees are settled and they're assimilated. But you're reiterating those facts about your value system and culture during all hands meeting. So everybody, and it also should show in your behavior, because people only what they see is behavior. They don't see that how good you are and how good are you at your heart. People don't see that. What people see is what you show it to them, and which comes in the form of your behaviors. So it is very important that role modeling is very important. All the leaders in the organizations are committed and invested in making sure we keep the same culture throughout the organization. It doesn't matter where people are, but we should still be able to touch their hearts and brains whenever is possible. So that's actually basically what I would say, that we have a very, very strong and important role to play in that.
Absolutely. Wonderful. Great insights. Thank you. So that brings us to the funner part of our conversation. Not that it wasn't fun till now, but the funner part. the question connection round is to kind of get to connect with you. So tell us one person that you found in the HR technology sphere in the past year or so that you've connected with and you think everyone should know.
Okay. I have a very big network, just to let you know. I am actually, if you go to my LinkedIn, I have about 3,600, connections, and I keep maintain those connections. So recently, I've not made a connection in last 1 year because I already have a big network. But one person I really admire in the HR network, and especially in the Seattle space, he's actually a mentor for many of them, and I'm one of them actually, by the way. His name is Dave Gardenberg. He actually was with Microsoft for more than a decade, and then he worked, I think, if I'm not wrong, about 12 to 13 years. He was a general manager of human resources and worked there. And then after that, he joined a company called Slalom Consulting as a CHRO. And then currently he's with Avanade. He used to be a CHRO of Avanade, and I think he's taken a new role as a transformation leader. He's one person, whether it's about technology or people or overall HR, people can connect. And definitely, I'm saying this on on this broadcast or podcast. I hope he's not slammed with when they listen to this.
Well, we are going to link him in the show notes, so we will link his profile in the show notes. So I hope he is bombarded, because if he's so good, we should all be connecting to him, right?
Yeah, he's very good. I think there are very few. There are more in my list, and I actually call it my board of directors. The way the board of directors, in any company, there are board of directors, and what you do is typically is what is the role of a board of directors? Is they don't run day-to-day operations of the company. They are a kind of a sounding board, and they are the people who give the direction to the company where they want the company will be successful. So I have a board of directors who, if I need to, bounce an idea or ask, hey, how should I manage? So I have a list of board of directors, but Dave Gardenberg has been one of the top person in that list.
Wonderful. Thank you for sharing his connection. So, I'm sure you mentioned you've been learning a lot with your leadership and you've been attending a lot of, online sessions. What's one LinkedIn Learning or e-learning webinar within the HR tech sphere that you think everyone in HR should listen to and learn from?
Yeah, there are many of them. The one I really like is, and why I like it, before I tell the name of this e-learning module, I like it because it's coming from a CEO. It is also coming from a company which I really admire. And this individual is the person who is actually delivering the session in this is one of the known CEOs in the industry. And he has very practical way of thinking about what leadership means. So this is actually one podcast, which the name is of the podcast is The 3 Pillars of Effective Leadership by Jeff Weiner. He used to be the CEO of LinkedIn, actually.
Yes.
This actually particular program, the training or whatever you want to call it, is in LinkedIn Learning. So anybody can go and pull this module, and this is a really good module. It's a very practical. His thoughts are very practical from his experiences over when he worked before LinkedIn and during LinkedIn, how he became an effective leader. And he continuously, because we are all lifelong learners, so our learning never stops. So his tone and messaging is very much the same. That hey, we learn from each other, we learn from the environment, and this is one of the e-learning I really like, actually. Yeah.
Thank you. And we'll link that in the show notes for the audience as well. So, favorite HR podcast?
Yeah. It's again very difficult to tell one because there's so many of them. But the one which I actually listened to recently, I like the content of that because of the content the person was talking about. So Josh Bershin, who was with, if I'm not wrong, with Delight before, or
Yes.
so he has his own, a podcast series, and he talked about recently about Microsoft Viva, which is a platform, and probably you must be interested because that Viva will do some kind of a documentation management too, and that's
Yes.
yours, if I'm not wrong.
Yes.
So I
Well,
really like
it's a little bit of that, but yeah, Viva's doing a lot more than our platform. So I was listening to Satya Nadella's release about Viva the other day too. So I'm very curious. I will listen to this one.
Yeah, so anybody interested just to know that how you can integrate every aspect of your employee experience in the company. It's a platform which is created, whether they're productivity tools or the HR tools or communication tools. Everybody's think coming in one single platform and how it will integrate and give the experience to employees, which will be quite seamless. It's we have to see how it will work out, but it sounds and it looks on the prima facie really good product.
Yeah, I'm
Uh,
excited about it. One of my colleagues said she's scared about it, but we'll see, right? We
yeah.
get both
Another one, I think,
reactions.
if any,
I'm
sorry about
sorry.
that. If there is anybody interested in one, if in and especially with the topic we are talking about is digital transformation,
Uh-huh.
there is an e-learning module again in LinkedIn Learning, which is called the crucial role of HR in digital transformation by Charlene Lee. That is also a really good e-learning to watch. It talks about how HR can be effective and make sure you know we are delivering all the possible facilitating the process of digitization in any company. So it's not about technology, it's not about platform, it's all about people and how you make sure you transition people to new technology. And I've been in my career at some point in time, I was an SAP consultant. So, and whenever you do any implementation in company, you get a lot of resistance. Um, and its resistance is not because they have to use the technology. It is it's they don't want to change their ways of working. They want to change the process, and so it's kind of quite a bit of change management which happens whenever you're doing the. So I think
Absolutely.
this is a great session if you want to look at the e-learning. The LinkedIn Learning is where role of HR, you will be able to hear what the role of HR should be.
And we'll link that in the show notes as well for the audience. So thank you. So given the upheaval of all things work and life, what's one workplace trend that you think is here to stay?
I think with this, I think remote working is not going anywhere. There are few challenges which will come along with that, which we just recently talked about. COVID has completely changed the mindset of people in the organizations on remote working. I think with this change, the trust, I think trust will increase among manager and employees and organization and employees, because I personally feel that. This the Because we in the previous pre-COVID world, and a lot of organizations who were not remote organization like our organization, they were all used to of seeing people in the office and what time they come, what time they go, and think. And in this COVID environment, people have, I'm assuming, have not thinking about it because you're working remotely, right? So I personally feel that the trust will become one thing which will be enhanced actually in this environment, in this new world. Couple of things which I feel, and we have to still look at the research, what happens in future will get impacted, I believe. One is, I think, innovation is a possibility. I have to still look at the data, and data will not come until next 2 to 3 years probably, because you need a longitudinal data and a more long-term data to look at what's going on in the organization. So to get a really good data on this, we need to see what the right time is to get the research. But I personally feel that, like, for example, if you have a team, and especially in the tech world, when you're working in these agile teams, and a team of 4, team of 5, or team of 10, and let's say as the teams become larger, you will see that there are few people who are contributing in the meeting, right? Because sometimes you're worried that hey, you'll talk over with somebody when you're interacting, or it is also depends on the skill of the manager and the facilitator of the meeting, that how much opportunity that facilitator is giving it to other everybody in the in who is in the meeting. And some people are also, it's also to do with extroverts and introverts. So the introverts, you need a little bit of nudge to to talk and share their ideas. Probably my experience has been that introverts actually have better ideas than extroverts sometimes. And and
Yes.
and and and, and especially in the remote world, what will happen is then the more and more people, a few people will be contributing more as compared to less. So I would see that some of the voices which needs to be heard we will not be able to hear because of the dynamics on remote. So that's one area which could impact innovation in long term, and we have to still see how. The second area which I think is the engagement, which I talked about before also, that once you're, let's say people move to Hawaii, and then you become 8 to 5 kind of a job, or you
Uh-huh.
go to a, and then you say, oh, let me finish and then I will do more activities. So I hope, I'm assuming, I would like to trust the employees and they'll do the right thing. But I hope over time, the attachment and engagement with the organization could slow down. Again, we have to see, or we have to make sure that as the leaders and HR professionals and whichever functions you are, how we make our life of our employees so exciting by giving more challenging work, and by giving them opportunities to grow. And then we do see the same amount of passion over time, not in just like, I right now, to be very frank, the data says that when we are working in this COVID time, people are working harder than ever.
Absolutely. It's no
uh,
longer 9 to 5, right? It's 9 to
yeah,
9 or 9 to 12.
yeah, yeah, people are working too harder. But when
Mm.
this whole COVID goes, and when in that situation, when you're working remotely, it will be good to, it will be, I think we should see how this whole thing will change over time, and how, what research says in terms of the engagement level in the organizations. I think these are the two things which I worry about. Rest, everything is quite positive. I think everything is positive. We are seeing the productivity is going up, and we're also seeing that because of this 24 by 7 kind of an environment, the productivity is good or bad, I don't know, but productivity has gone up. People have gone up.
Definitely, right? It has risen.
People are working harder. But one thing in COVID time, which is actually, another thing which is impacted during COVID time. I don't know what will happen, what will happen in future when there's no COVID. Is especially the couples who both were working, both spouses are working, and they have kids from age of 0 to like 7 years. Or 8 years, that population got impacted in this time the most, and they have seen the burnout rates much higher. So I think every organization should think, and how you can help this population, because in those people who are taking care of their, without the help of school and without the help of childcare, how these this couple is who's in this category of people, how they're taking care of their professional life as well as their personal life, has been impacted the most. And then we have seen the burnout rate maximum in this population. So it will be, I think, and like organization like ours is quite flexible. So nobody's saying, hey, micromanaging, or nobody is saying, hey, what you're doing. Like in my team, to be frank, in Judy in my team actually delivered a baby during this time, and then she like, it's so hard. I see that, hey, she balances act between the kid and the work, and and as an organization we have been very flexible, and see, it doesn't matter when you work, unless until you're delivering the right the whatever is being assigned to you, it's great. So I think that's one thing happened. And I think going forward, when in the post-COVID world, that challenge may not be there, because the childcare and all the other avenues of help will be available once this all is over.
And on the flip side of that, even single parents, like, right? So if they're couples, maybe they can kind of help each other out. But if they're single parents, the challenges have been so much
Absolutely.
bigger, right? So I definitely feel for them. I do. So how do you enjoy giving back to the HR community? I know you're engaged in a lot of other community activities, right, in the Seattle area, and that, you network a lot. How do you enjoy giving back?
I think the most effective way has been through either presenting in a conference, and this is one medium which we are talking today. That through the podcast or the podcast, that's another way to do it. But I think I have seen quite a bit success doing one-on-one mentoring throughout, and it is more of not like one time or 2 times or 3 sessions will help. So I have few people who have been in touch with me for many years, and I've worked with them and mentored and coached over time, and I love they're doing really well, far better than what I'm doing today. So I like that I'm able to give back to the community where I have also learned. I've also in the past, when I was young, my hair are gray now. When I was young, I used to actually write research papers and present it in the conferences, and I have few publications during my early career where I was able to present whatever else I am learning with others. So those are a few other ways to give it to the community. But the most I have enjoyed is the one-on-one, where so that I can. It's not just personal and professional. It's just more holistic, and it's more effective long term. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for everything you're doing for the HR community, and thank you so much for being on our podcast today. If someone would like to reach you, what's the best way to connect with you online?
I think these days the best is I'm going to still keep selling LinkedIn the way I sold LinkedIn learning before. I think that's the best way to reach out to me. You can write to me and write a note. Would be happy to interact and chat and over remote Zoom meeting or Teams meeting, whatever is comfortable to that in person. So I think LinkedIn is the best way to reach to me. Yeah.
Wonderful. Well, thank you again, Ritesh. It's been a pleasure talking to you and learning from you. I've learned a lot. I'm sure my audience have really learned a lot from today's conversation. And I'm so thankful that you were able to join us today. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Jay. I think it was wonderful to be here. I hope I was able to give a little bit of wisdom. I don't know whether I have or not, but I think it was really nice to be in this podcast.
Thank you, audience, and we'll see you again with more global HR tech stories. Take care. Bye-bye.